Well, welcome everyone here to the United Lodge of Theosophist here in San Diego, and also welcome to the Banyan Tree community. So we have a special meeting this time, and it's called United Lodge of Theosophists, and we have a subtitle called "The Idea of a Nucleus." So that's what we're going to explore today. And here's April Hedge-Kaikens, and she's going to moderate this panel. So yeah, okay, this is the Jewel in the Lotus, so I'm going to read from today. And there's a reading from Nagarjuna. If anybody has a Jewel in the Lotus, it's reading number 461. It's Nagarjuna doing kind of an invocation. And it's pretty amazing because Nagarjuna is the one that was teaching in the same area as the great Nalanda University started. So in some ways, the Dalai Lama thinks of him as like the beginning of the whole thing, even though he didn't found it, but he was teaching in that area. And when you hear this invocation, you can see why his power would start something that would last 700 years. So this is what he says. He says, "O awakened ones, who for countless eons generated compassion out of mercy for beings. Delight in the thoughts of my prayers. The time is right to work for the good of the world. Send from your palace of the sphere of truth magical emanations to empower and reveal. Come, liberate the myriads of beings. Descend with your entourage, I pray you." This is Dr. Ken Campos. He knows a lot about science. He's going to tell us about a nucleus. Now, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for that. Just in terms of the quick background, so I studied biology at Caltech, the California Institute of Technology, and this was back in the 1970s, and I have a bachelor's degree in biology of all things. But really, I was a biochemist and focused a lot on DNA and got my first paper written on an enzyme that is involved in the nucleus of cells. So there's bacterial cells and non-bacterial cells. So we're the eukaryotic non-bacterial side. And a cell has a double layer sort of lipid membrane around the cell. And then within the cell, there's a bunch of little organelles, they call them. They're little cute little organs inside the cell. And cells are pretty small. And almost all of them in our bodies and plants and animal bodies have a nucleus. There's a few cells that don't, like red blood cells, their nucleus is gone. And they only last for 4 months. But most of the rest of the cells have a nucleus. And inside the nucleus is the DNA. And around 1950, Watson and Crick wrote a one-page paper that has been cited by almost everybody in biology on the structure of DNA. So DNA is the code for biological organisms to create the form of the organisms, and that's contained inside the nucleus. So what's the nucleus about? The nucleus is like a little factory that in itself controls the code or the mechanism, or like the library of all of the genes that form an organism or plant and animal. And in the nucleus, there are enzymes that can read the DNA. And the work that I did back in college days was to look on an enzyme that helped the DNA to unravel from some proteins. So just like we talk in Theosophy about incarnations of life being beads on a string, guess what? DNA is organized like beads on a string. And the string of DNA is wrapped up around these proteins called histones. And my first paper was on histone acetyltransferase. That's an enzyme that allows the histone protein to change so the DNA can come unraveled from that and then be available to be read. And I didn't get anything published, but I did work also in the college days on a thing called RNA polymerase that copies the DNA into messenger RNA. And there's a couple of different kinds of RNA, which gets sort of confusing. But the messenger RNA takes the DNA code and it copies into this other molecule, which is almost identical. So when it's deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA is just ribonucleic acid. And those things, you guys may have heard of the AGCT. They're the acronym letters for the starts of the 4 nucleic acids that make up DNA. So there's only 4. It's an alphabet, like our English letter alphabet has got 20 some odd letters. Mexican alphabet, Spanish has got a few extra letters. Cyrillic's got some letters. DNA has only 4 letters. And now it's more complicated than computer binary. So in the nucleus, there's this DNA material, and it's arranged in chromatin, and then when it divides, it comes into chromosomes, and that sends the message of what wants to be produced, and each cell gets to decide. So most all of our body cells on a plant and animal has the whole message, has the whole genome, except only some of it is written read at a time. So the heart cell only reads the heart. So the nucleus has got to be pretty smart to know where it is in the body and what are the surrounding cells. So the heart will only make heart muscle, protein, and heart-related things, even though it has the whole code for the whole body. Same with liver does just liver things, the skin just does skin things, although the message is there for everything. So the nucleus has the discriminatory power. That's a big thing for us, and it also has a lot of information. And Theosophists love to be bookish people and have libraries. So the DNA is like a library that Watson and Crick got famous for. And the nucleus is an organizational machine that holds onto this information, sort of like the library in Alexandria. And in Theosophy, I think each lodge and each group of Theosophists can become like a nucleus to hold this sacred information, the perennial wisdom that Blavatsky shared with us in the 1880s and William Cotton Judge. And then we can have discrimination of like, who we're going to talk to this about, who we're not going to talk to this about, which parts are we going to open up and look at. And that's part of what we get to do in our lodges, which is analogous to the function of a nucleus in a cell. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, Ken. It seemed like we were really trying to get at the idea of, well, what even is a nucleus? So that's why we asked Dr. Campos to kind of give us a symbol to kind of think about. And and April Hedgeka-Ekins has graciously accepted the position of moderator. So it's all yours.
Okay. Well, what struck me when I began to learn about Theosophy was the first object. And the first object is to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, um,
Yes.
caste, or color. Now that, as Ken mentioned, that was right after the Civil War. Now, that to me was incredible to have an object like that as a pursuit to be part of, in terms of recognize our interconnectedness with all being, with each other, with nature. To see that is to me core, and and to form a nucleus core where we pursue that. And as Ken pointed out, I mean, there are numerous nuclei. So now, in a way, what we're talking about here are many nuclei who are pursuing this path of finding out their own spiritual nature and connecting with others in this very unified and progressive way. So to think about that in the 1800s, we're still working on that and we're up and down every day in terms of the cycles of things. That we pursue it is very important. So I was thinking about the banyan tree actually, and when H.P. Blavatsky started it, you might consider her the trunk of the tree. And at that time, she was bringing Eastern thought to the West and showing the universality of the divine wisdom in terms of introducing it. So as the trunk of the tree, you see up here, you have branches that split off of the tree. And the judge branch, which we're here for, but also the Besant and Alcott from their trunk branch of the tree. And out of that, there are many branches of Theosophy and many spiritual teachers that have come after that continue to sort of spread out. And as I understand about a banyan tree, it actually the roots are on the top and they come down to the ground and create more trees.
Mm.
And so I see that as a metaphor for how the Theosophical movement, and I say the movement, will proceed. And we each have a part to play that's unique and at the same time connected to everyone else. So a big word for my husband and I has always been networking. And I was thinking of the Indian imagery of Indra's net, which is this networking sort of idea that there are many ways in which we can express these theosophical ideas in terms of how we live. And we can do it together, and we can do it with other people, and we can network together to create this unity, which has its own nuclei, in the sense, nucleus. So to me, it's about spreading the wonderful divine wisdom of our interconnectedness and inner being, and to live a life that works for the benefit of our own spiritual growth and the well-being of all of nature, humanity, all the kingdoms of nature. And there's purpose in that. There's a sense of I've got a part to play in this networking movement. It fits for who I am and what I'm about. So I think nucleus or nuclei is a good way to show the versatility of our own spiritual growth and our connection to others, and how we can support this idea of the interconnectedness of all being through our pursuit in service, our pursuit in our philosophy and studying it, and our application. So I think the way we're going to try this is we'll have each person who spoke at the conference give their own perception at the moment for what they think about when they think about nucleus as a core. And then we'll open it up. And maybe I'll start with Ken, and then I'll go to Jonathan, and then I'll go to Eugene.
Mhm.
By that time, it'll be 5, and we can go to Tim.
Perfect.
Okay. So go ahead.
Tim's on board already.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Wow.
Hi, Tim.
Oh, Tim, hi. Wow, that's great. Oh, that's great. So Eugene's here, but Tim is here too. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tim's here.
Why, Tim,
Tim's
please,
here.
why don't you start off?
Yes.
No, I like your order better.
We'll go with whatever you want. Okay, we'll go to Ken then.
Oh, nucleus. Nucleus.
Good. So I do want to make that connection between what you just said, Tim, and what Eugene said about recognizing how our responsiveness to the environment in terms of change is so necessary, and how we have to fit our own growth and our own expansion and connection to others according to what the need is now. And I had to share this with you, is that the other day I saw, it was on the news, of course, that President Obama opened his center in Chicago. And as I was watching it, thinking about my own energy level and how it affected me in such a positive way, what he's doing, trying to work with the youth in the community, and being so positive and hopeful about what we can achieve given the state of our own country and the difficulties we're going through, and how it uplifted me just to be part of that process. And I thought, well, you know, that is an example of manifesting this idea of brotherhood and connection to one another, and I thought it was beautiful. And so there's lots of ways of responding to the environment that we can be part of in terms of our own growth and the uniqueness of who we are. And we can still, in fact, respond to what's going on now in a way that is uplifting, beneficial, and moves other people into feeling accepted and supported. The other example I'll give is, people who have been in protest, nonviolent protest against some of the negativity that's going on in our society. And there were monks that walked across the country. One was a dog, and they had a great time. And as they would go through in a nonviolent way with all that energy, it would bring in people from community to community. And you could phrase it any way you want, but what we're trying to do here is not just on an intellectual level, but on a heart level, is to connect with people and community and recognize that we're all interconnected, and to be there and support people in ways of service and learning and care, so we can magnify this nuclei, and our human community can grow, become bigger and bigger. So I see examples of responding to the environment, as Eugene mentioned, that we can do just in terms of who we are and where we live and what we're possibly open to connect with. And we do what we can. And we're all part of that movement. And that begins to spread in a way that I think moves humanity to a higher stage. So maybe I'll ask if anybody on the panel wants to say anything else, and then we'll open it up to people in the audience and also on the Zoom.
Just to go back again to your comment on Indra's net, so
Yes.
this is like this vast net where each center the whole is reflected in each center, and the center reflects the whole. And so it's even in this, or in later, or in early theosophical writings, Judge would talk about each member as center, but it means it in that sense. So the center reflects the whole, and our activity extends. It's completely open to the universe and vice versa. So we don't really, we're not looking for results. We don't know the extent of it. If you go back and look at the history, just even of our modern theosophical movement, the individuals that become the kind of seminal, pivotal individuals that we look back on, they were so great, or so it's their activity, etc. They were just doing what they were doing. They weren't knowing that they were going to fulfill this role or saying, I'm going to do this or that. They just do what they do, and those opportunities and extensions come to them. So in that way, all our activity is that nucleus and has that potential.
Great. That's good.
You can look back again in the history, just 100 people from 1875 to now. And I mean in the broader theosophical movement, not only the theosophical societies, but people like D.T. Suzuki or Gandhi, Evans Wentz, many, and extending beyond that too, into other movements and things. Shifted the whole East-West alliance, became integrated through this flow of culture back and forth. Parliament of Religions in 1893, Vivekananda coming, kicked open the door for this fluid opening between East and West. And now, what is in our modern time now, we are also in this very important shift to the South-North integration in this whole perspective, and the spiritual value and views of ancient indigenous communities in the view of this whole.
I got something quick here.
Good.
I don't know if Wes Ammerman's listening, but if he is,
Right here, Jonathan.
okay, all right,
In your
Wes.
backyard.
Hey, so I don't know if you have access real quick to the judge articles, but I thought there's one, and you probably got a better memory for these things than me, where he has an article called Yours Till Death and After.
Hmm.
And in that article, he's got a little paragraph, an inset, where he's including a conversation that he had with HPB. Do you remember if that's the case, if that's a thing, or if I'm making things up?
I don't think you're making it up. I have to go look up the article, but I could probably do that. Give me a minute or so.
Could you do that? There's an
Sure,
inset,
will do.
and
Give me a
he says he's in London with her, which is not a very common thing, but some reason he went there. And he talks about how she's sitting at her desk, and he laments a little bit. What about? I mean, he sounds like people now. Actually, he says, "What about? Well, there's so many people that are just doing so many things, and how are we going to get people interested in theosophy?" She's basically saying, "Don't worry about it; it's all going to work out." But anyway, her response is kind of fits into what we're talking about, and the idea of a nucleus versus the nucleus and all that stuff. She's already kind of pioneering and thinking that through. You can tell.
Okay, so Wes, if you get to it, then let us know. You can.
Well, I have the article. I could. I can't share it, but I could refer to it if you have something in particular.
Did you find that it's an inset? I think. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
Where he's talking about a conversation he had with her, and I might have the wrong article.
Oh, no.
it's a pretty good guess.
You don't, and I can read it if you like. It's a wonderful paragraph.
Did I have the right?
Yes, I know what
Yeah,
you're
I
referring
think so.
to here. And this is, he's quoting HPB here, and she says, according to the quote, when you consider and remember those days in 1875 and after, in which you could not find any people interested in your thoughts, and now look at the wide-spreading influence of theosophical ideas, however labeled. It is not so bad. We are not working merely that people may call themselves theosophists, but that the doctrines we cherish may affect and leaven the whole mind of this century. This alone can be accomplished by a small, earnest band of workers who work for no human reward, no earthly recognition, but who, supported and sustained by a belief in that universal brotherhood of which our masters are a part, work steadily, faithfully in understanding and putting forth for considerations the doctrines of life and duty that have come down to us from immemorial time. Falter not so long as a few devoted ones will work to keep the nucleus existing. You were not directed to found and realize a universal brotherhood, but to form the nucleus for one.
The nucleus.
For it is only when the nucleus is formed that the accumulations can begin that will end in future years, however far, in the formation of that body which we have in view.
Thank you, Russ, so much.
Thanks, Russ.
It's a great quote.
It's really great. Okay, so yes, please.
Oh wait, we've still not
Yeah.
done your maybe.
Yeah, you have to look at here.
Oh, I didn't see it.
It's hard to see it.
So
Is that Laura?
I don't see it. Anyway.
Up here at the top.
Oh.
I can try and get this thing closer, I guess. Sorry.
So
There was Laura, then Kim, then Kurt, then
okay. All right. And
Oh, you know what? Let's see, Brett, what if you put that side thing back up again? Maybe I can do it from here.
okay. so I can see who's,
Yeah, so we can see a whole lineup.
yeah.
Okay, so how would that be? Can you do it from your computer, Brett, back there? Put that spread of everybody.
Who's, wants to respond?
Oh, wait, I can do it from maybe from here. Oh, well, this isn't very good. Now it's too big. That's ridiculous.
I think Laura is already unmuted, so maybe she can ask her question while you're
Yeah,
doing
I
the
would love
technological
to.
part.
I would love to. We have this article by Mr. Judge where he says universal brotherhood is a fact in nature. And the words that I heard today were this idea of responding to the environment, membrane, connect, magnify, move humanity higher is another term, each member a center, and creating a vehicle. And then the word accumulation. And so, in thinking in terms of universal brotherhood is a fact in nature, just what is it that we are forming and what is accumulating around that form? Because it says to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood. So that's interesting in regard to the idea that universal brotherhood is a fact in nature. So, what is the form and what is accumulating?
So if we want to, I'll give it a go. I think we're here to support one another as individuals and in community. So each person is recognized with dignity, with value, and we work for the well-being of the individual and the whole through community and through our connection in nature. That's how I look at life. And what I try to give every day in that regard. So perhaps someone else would like to chime in about what that means. If not, I'll go.
Go back to the rest of the panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's a really good question. I think
do you want to say anything?
Jean or Jonathan or myself.
Yeah, do you want to say anything?
Again, Laura, it was the form and the other part was the
Accumulation.
Accumulation. What is being accumulated around that nucleus? And Jean spoke of the membrane as well, which is a form, that seems to be really important in this as well, because universal brotherhood itself is a fact in nature.
Well, again, universal brotherhood as a fact in nature is what I would call the view. This has to do with the universal view. And the form has to do with at any point in time as our culture and the theosophical movement evolves, the form would then be literally the appropriate, skillful forms for any period of time. And these change. The language changes, the expression changes, the modes change. To me, that's the form. Forms wear out if they get stuck in past, hundreds of years, 1,000 years, whatever. Forms need to change and be brought into the current dynamic point that is the manifestation of that universal and the particular relative factors of any cycle or any time period. I don't know if this makes sense. This is my idea at the moment anyway. This is a universal brotherhood, a fact in nature. Is again that you can use different metaphors. So there's the image again, like April started off with Indra's net. So this is Indra's net is a image of universal brotherhood, a fact in nature. Everything is unified and interdependent, therefore universal brotherhood.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that Eugene and Tim, if you want to say anything on this regard.
Yeah, at the time that the society was being, the Theosophical movement was birthed, there was a clear form that was trying to be created. This organization, this grouping of people who get it, basically, or who at least are trying to get it, and are sufficiently less self-absorbed that they're able to actually connect with this more deeply. And I think the fact in nature, universal brotherhood is a fact in nature. The infinity of the universe is a fact in nature. The fact of the divinity that's at the core of each and every one of us, that's one of those facts in nature that we find ourselves separated from. And so I think in many ways, the accumulation takes place when there is a form, when there's a receptacle that is adequate for the purposes. And the thing that Blavatsky and others always seemed to just rail about was the idea that at the most basic levels, we as people just keep on falling short of what would be required for even a brotherhood of the type of, she compared it sometimes to the Masons, or, just that level of brotherhood was something that was difficult to attain. And so I think part of it is that, there is, when you have that, there's the possibility for these energies to accumulate, to express themselves through this nucleus. When you don't have it, they're constantly leaking out. And so you just don't, so I mean, that seems to be the work that was put before us to create, to perfect the form so that it can accumulate the essence that can then be spread abroad. I mean, I think that might be a way of putting it.
And the only thing that we would say is what's already been said, but perhaps with just a little twist. And that is, if brotherhood is a fact in nature, that is the underlying archetypal structure. It is perfect. When I think about the nucleus of a universal brotherhood, and, sorry to be a party pooper, but I mentioned to Jonathan yesterday that I'd probably say it. In letter 6 of the Mahatma letters, the teachers say, quote, "The chiefs want a brotherhood of humanity, a real universal fraternity started, an institution which would make itself known throughout the world and arrest the attention of the highest minds." And perhaps the lack of our ability to conform to the underlying archetypal truth of that net or that image of universal brotherhood is what creates the karma that causes the disruption. And so what we have to accumulate is the right views, the right understandings, the right actions, the right love and compassion for each other as a brother sisterhood of sentient life, of humanity. And then all the gifts that must follow from that spiritual path will accumulate naturally.
So then that says to be children of one sweet mother, as the voice of the silence says.
Yeah, indeed.
That was supposed to end at what time?
Technically 5:45, but we can go till 6.
Okay, good.
So we got lots of time.
Okay, good. This is my first crack at moderating, so I'm learning the ropes.
But in 20 minutes, we all have to go out on the sidewalk and take pictures of ourselves.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I hope not. Well, so I see a list here.
Kim is next.
Yes. So Kim, are you still there?
Yeah, just a quick comment. The DNA if it did not have a nucleus or even a nucleolus, which is even more specialized, if it did not have a nuclear membrane separating it from the cytoplasm, the DNA will get destroyed because the cytoplasm is highly chemically active. And so the nuclear membrane actually protects the DNA then. So by analogy, it seems like maybe, well, really what HPB's quote was about that Russ Law read, that purity of the DNA can be preserved as we create a purified nucleus. So I was just wondering if that idea of a purified space for the DNA to function could be explored a little bit, or not. Just a comment, maybe.
No, I think it's a good question.
You have more you can
Oh,
to spur the question on?
keep going.
Yeah.
Don't just stop. Okay. So Kim just mentioned this idea of kind of the protective component. Well, is that the protection of the membrane, of the outside membrane, or the membrane
No,
around the nucleus?
yeah,
Right?
the membrane around the nucleus, protecting it from the highly active rest of the cell.
Okay.
And then, of course, the outer membrane of the cell needing
Yeah.
to be sensitive, like Ken was mentioning.
Yeah, and that's the communication with the outside world. And that's the whole thing too, because Ken Campos mentioned the idea that there's a certain amount of filtering or discernment and so forth that the nucleus would symbolize, especially the DNA. But also this outside membrane, because the membrane is what discerns what's going to go in and out, right? And is sensitive to the outside world, which is what was brought up in terms of the needs of humanity. But going back to this this inner membrane, Kim, is there a special name for the inner membrane that's around the nucleus?
The nuclear membrane.
Thank you. It would be that way, wouldn't it? So, the nuclear membrane, and also the purity of the system and of the DNA, and there's it's a little, and it can become a source of contention. I'm the one that has the pure water among Theosophists. My Theosophy stuff is more pure than yours,
Oh no.
right? So where's it's a trouble with the brotherhood part of that, right? But there is a purity of transmission that is being asked to do, right? In other words, in some ways the DNA is the brotherhood of bodhisattvas, the brotherhood of Mahatmas, because without them nothing would happen. But that gets into a lot of troubles. If people think about them with the heart, then people can stay out of trouble. It's a heart reality. But if people are too intellectual about it, they start trying to bring them down to our kind of impure level. So the idea is to transmit theosophy into the world, and to be as have the most fidelity as possible to their message. And so that means being trying to figure out, well, who are their messengers, but also to be universal about it, because we don't really know everything. A lot of us have confidence that HPB was one of their messengers, and that's something that most Theosophists can hang their hat on. At least they feel like it. And then, consistent with that, and a lot of people read the Mahatma letters for that reason. They're saying, well, wait a minute, let's just go to the source. So, but the fact that they used her as a messenger tells you something about what they were thinking about what humanity was probably ready for, if that makes sense. And the fact that we were talking about that in the restaurant earlier, that she had a sense of self enough so that she could be a faithful messenger. And there's this idea of Countess Wachtmeister asking her the question, well, really, if there was HPB and two Mahatmas writing the secret doctrine, how could you tell the difference between yourself and the Mahatmas in terms of because they were giving her the teachings psychically. She says, "Oh, I can tell the difference between my voice and other people's voice." So, in other words, a person would have to be a certain amount individuated in order to be a faithful messenger, if that makes any kind of a sense. But I'm not really doing very much with the cell nucleus, with the membrane, the nuclear membrane. So if anybody else has any comments on that.
Well, my question was kind of along similar lines, actually.
Go ahead, please.
Want to throw it in the soup?
Yeah, throw it in.
Yeah, may as well. We were thinking that rather than sticking only with biological correspondence or analogy to what's being referred to, that other analogies would be helpful as well. And I think Jean kind of mentioned this. We have the beautiful description in the second fragment of the voice, right? That disciples, we could say, what is a disciple? Well, a disciple would have to be an aspirant of universal brotherhood, for one. Disciples may be likened to the strings of the soul echoing vina, mankind unto its sounding board, the hand that sweeps it to the tuneful breath of the great world soul. The string that fails to answer neath the master's touch, in dulcet harmony with all the others, breaks and is cast away. So this idea that a nucleus of universal brotherhood would be a group of strings on a vina that are playing in harmony to the great world soul. And I think keeping the analogy very open-ended like that, but in terms of a sound rather than physical structures, is very helpful, because sometimes that vina is going to be in tune and sometimes it's not. And sometimes those strings are playing in harmony and sometimes they're not. And it may only be in certain conditions that at a certain time and place that suddenly there's this magnificent golden age harmony that is emitted. And we were thinking about something that HPB says, that this idea of establishing a true center of universal brotherhood was something humanity had waited for over 18 centuries, and that had failed again and again, right? So my question was going to be along the lines of, should we assume that we haven't yet touched that ideal, which would also be truth at a distance. Yes, brotherhood is a fact in nature, but for human beings, it's an ideal at a distance that we're always having to strive for, and then in which new obstacles and conditions continually arise that we have to respond to and readjust, to be back in harmony and so on. So, but should we assume that maybe we did at some point in our lives, with a few others in our circle, kind of reach that really kind of a crescendo of that harmonic unity in which something valuable, of extreme value and healing, was transmitted to the world, and that it can't ever be repeated in the same way that it was, but it can move on to new dimensions and be expressed in new ways as we move into the new age, and so on. But also just this idea of thinking that we're not quite there yet. It's something that we need to make further transformations in order to accomplish. And just as the last point is that it would seem that if there were centers of only 4 or 5 of us in a group somewhere in India or England or New York, wherever they happen to be, who were truly able, with this kind of unconditional regard for one another and cherishing of this divine wisdom that's been given, and they're working together, they were able to resonate, at least for a time, to universal brotherhood, wouldn't they automatically connect with all other such centers, both in time and space? And that's that quote from Emerson or Thoreau that I love, where he says, when he is able to raise the veil on deity, even for a moment, that there is no distance in time or space between the Gnostic and the Sufi and the Hindu who was doing the same, no matter in what age that was. So I'll stop there.
Great. I can feel that compassion, that universality of compassion can be brought about in different ways by different people in different moments. But it's all coming from that connection, that deep spiritual connection with the oneness of all life. It's very touching. Now, was that, I didn't get your name. Was your name David? Or was it?
That was Kirk. That was Kirk.
Oh, that was Kirk.
Right.
Okay, so
can I say? Can I
yeah, please.
just a tad to 1 and 2? Kim's and Kirk. For Kim's, and I think Kirk mentioned things in line with this as everyone has. But this thought comes to mind only because we're wrapping up the Ocean of Theosophy, or we did wrap it up. And that membrane around the nucleus, perhaps Judge talks about that in the last chapter in regards to the aura at the astral level that surrounds every being. It can be pure, and it can repel and reflect all negative influences, or it can be infected. And so if we as centers, as Judge suggests, are truly reinforcing that invisible atmosphere about us, wherever we go, we are communicating an invisible influence, as was suggested, to the environment, the community, and the world around us. And perhaps that gets paid forward. And so, it's a small scale, but if everyone that is studying the teachings does it, it becomes exponentially large. And the truth is, all we have to do is look at the world. We have not established the core that the chiefs wanted as of yet. But if we think about the chessboard, and we think about, I think, as Tim mentioned, the different organizations in their own way doing that universal brotherhood, sisterhood thing, and we think about all of the lodges all over the world, if there were just a central mind that could coordinate that to send out a wave of concentrated effort continuously, perhaps as HPB said, from century to century, in regards to universal brotherhood and sisterhood and sentient lifehood, wave after wave after wave, it wouldn't take long. The golden rule of divide and conquer is what we've been subjected to. And perhaps meetings like this that can go beyond the boundaries that are artificial and superficial and based on appearance only can finally drop the egoic aspect to come together to look at the heroic aspect that relates to all of universal humanity.
So we have a little time left, and am I reading this right? Arun, is Arun still here?
Yeah.
Did you have a question or comment you'd like to make?
Yeah, it is a comment, but
Can
it's
I-
something that I. Oh, you not hear me?
Yeah, not too well.
Try and fix your microphone somehow.
Okay, wait a minute. Well,
There,
I'll have to speak loud. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Better.
just hold the microphone like that. That's good.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Jonathan. It's a quote that I remember Mahatma Gandhi saying, and that is that Theosophy is the highest form of Hinduism because it includes universal brotherhood.
Yes.
And I mean, I looked up that quote just now, but then what I got instead was him saying Theosophy is the highest form of Hinduism, and I can't see that he had that universal brotherhood thing there. But having said that, the world is already a very divided world, and put in the word nucleus aside, which I see more like the word primordial, meaning that it's a center which spreads. Kirk talked about Vina and not playing in harmony. So there are many things that divide us. It could be politics, sectarian alliance, vaccines, Israel, woke stuff. I belong to the Hamilton Lodge in New Zealand. I'm giving a talk in about an hour's time. And it's very Hodsonian, so it's all about Jeffrey Hodson. And our branch doesn't quite look at things that way. But look at the quote by Van der Leeuw, where he says the society must cease to be a brotherhood with the exclusion of less desirable brethren. It must break down the barriers which make it possible to speak of an outside world and create a new form of membership which does not involve sectarian allegiance. My point is, generally, I avoid politics, any reference to Obama or Trump or flags or anything. But those are the most important things to talk about in this already divided world. So, can someone comment on that? And finally, I don't really agree with Eugene's comment about divide and conquer, because I do see it more like go forth and multiply. So I really don't like the idea of having a centralized control of all our thoughts in the organization.
Right. Yeah.
So, Arun, what was your question exactly?
We emphasize the nucleus of brotherhood, but there are a lot of things which divide us and exclude brothers who may not be quite thinking the way that we can't have a monopoly on theosophy. You can't exclude people because they are pro-Israel or pro-Trump or whatever. And is it best to just avoid those topics altogether? And how else can you find universal brotherhood?
You want to comment?
I'll try. I mean, I think that we are in our relative sense here. We're not talking about theosophical yugas or manvantras, And so our challenge here is to where we stand, and each of us is, we're global. You're in New Zealand. We're all different places. So we're each in a different geo-energetic, social, political, religious context. And we looking out of the box a little bit, just a tiny bit is a stretch, just to begin to think in centuries rather than this year, next year, this leader, that leader, or this particular movement. And then in looking through that, really look at from the theosophical point of view, even just 100, 200 years from now. We're looking to the future. We're integrating from the past to the future. We're not trying to go back and figure out everything that happened. That's my take. We really want to carry this integration forward and find that greater view, and it can take many forms. We have to be open to all the forms and really let go of the current details will come and go rapidly. So the evanescent rise and fall of various leaders is pretty insignificant in the scheme of things over the next 100, 200, 300 years. So we can look at the new larger cycles opening, kind of the Project 2175, I think would be a good view.
Perhaps there is a possibility to connect and share your values in the context of of caring and compassion and what's going on in each situation that you're in. And I think if you're able to convey and listen and connect with other people and respond in a way that's helpful and beneficial, you're practicing brotherhood. It's putting it into action in your everyday life and in the various venues that you are in. And to me, that's an integration of one's values, one's thinkings, one's feelings from the heart, and trying to do your best in every situation you encounter with the people that are in your life.
I don't know if Gene or Tim wants to weigh in on this.
I think is
He does. Good.
Is Tim
Tim is gone.
still?
Did he have to
Tim's
go?
gone.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps one thing we realize, I mean, diversity, difference is how we live every day. We wear different clothes, we eat different foods, we like different musics, and that does not have to divide us from the point of view of a universal truth. Everyone can have the name they want for their God. They can have their political beliefs because from their point of view, those beliefs may be valid. We don't all live in the same space in our heads. We don't live in the same environment. We don't live in the same country. Every place has its needs. And to the degree that we can understand and listen to the needs of the other is the degree to which we can work despite difference and the appearance of diversity, and recognize that we all have the same needs. We all do the same things. The appearance of difference is really just that. And if we can move beyond the appearance, which is what theosophical teachings and most more realistic spiritual teachings propose, then having a conversation with each other and celebrating the differences and the way that they approach the divine or the way that they approach their policies of living is an honor. It's a learning experience. The doing wrong to another, and we'll put the word wrong in quotes, is a different thing. So rights, justice, that may be something we have to put a stake down on. But most of what we seem to believe is a difference is not really important. As was said, 2175 or 2075 even, these issues may not be of concern. So it's the short and the long view, perhaps, that we have to keep in mind.
Dr. Thomas?
Okay, I just wanted to observe something because I was attracted to come all the way from France because of the idea of the nucleus. And I've been doing some thinking and research whilst you've been talking. And I'm reading the autobiography of Bertrand Russell, the philosopher, campaigning against nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about, nuclear physics, nuclear war. We're living in a world terrified of nuclear war. We've turned the concept of the nucleus, in this case the atomic nucleus, into a weapon, which is utterly shocking, isn't it?
Yes.
I think what we ought to be thinking about as theosophists who are interested in this is there a sort of nuclear peace? If we could understand what the nucleus is, and it's part of the law of nature, cells, atoms, things come with nuclei. That's part of the design. And every single one of us has trillions of cells in our body, all of which have a nucleus. So each of us is a sort of walking library of nuclear peace.
Beautiful.
This is what we need to tap into
Mm-hmm.
to oppose the misuse of nuclear science for destruction. So I just wanted to throw that in. I'm a specialist in linguistic philosophy and etymology, and I just, it's really important that we discuss how nuclear metaphysics can lead out of this trap of nuclear war.
Right.
That's great.
Yes. So go ahead, please.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, first of all, Doctor, thank you for fixing your microphone, because that was well worth waiting for.
Yes,
So
right.
thank you. It was like a really a golden comment. And so I'm thinking that, the nuclear atomic everything was invented around 80 years ago or 90 years ago. But at about the same time, there was another scientist that was working on the kind of nuclear power that you're talking about. And it was Mohandas K. Gandhi, who's been quoted. And he talks about the power of nonviolence, really.
Sure.
And how, and it's interesting that in HPB, when she talks about psychic and noetic action, she talks about that the noetic power is atomic. It's very interesting. She makes a distinction between the atom and a molecule. Well, all these things have evolved in science since then, these definitions. But suffice it to say that the atom is something very pure and very, it's like a high fidelity vibration, you could say, whereas the molecule in this analogy is more heterogeneous. So the pure power of love, you could say, is more homogeneous and more universal. And then you think, oh, well, Gandhi's nice, and it's all very nice. But he started the world's largest democracy. So anybody that says that Gandhi's nice, well, wait a minute, have you started the world's largest democracy, really? So think about what he did. There's anybody who doesn't like Gandhi is just nipping at the heels of a giant, even though he only weighs probably 120 pounds. So that's the kind of power that can be unleashed. And that he talked about that, is that the power of love is something to be experimented with, just like any kind of science. And that you're going to find that there's more power in that, the power of harmony, the power of love, and so forth, than any other force in nature. He says, I'm sure of it. So he's almost like challenging future Gandhis to try that. And you had Martin Luther King. Think about the impossible thing that he was able to pull off, just with the power of unconditional love and the power of nonviolence and the discipline in that regard. And of trying to think of South Africa. Mandela, what he was able to pull off there. And how he harnessed the whole world, became sympathetic. And so the whole world economically supported him, so that he was able, that helped, so.
I think
the trouble is the non-violence people are smaller in number. I was the education director for the Gandhi Foundation in London, working with Lord Attenborough from Kingsley Hall, where Mahatma Gandhi lived when he came to London. And we set up a school of non-violence, which I ran and still run. But, violence is so attractive to people. It's on the TV every night.
Anyway, he really did the same thing that the Americans did 250 years ago, where they kind of whipped the British. The same thing happened. Gandhi whipped the British, really. So he took on the entire British Empire. That's no small thing.
But he did it through nonviolence.
Did it through nonviolence. Unfortunately, from my understanding, is that Gandhi is not the great hero in India now that he was at the time. And I've even heard so much that he's almost not really welcome to even be spoken about, because with the Modi thing, and the sectarianism. So anyway, that's just bad news from the frontier, we'll call it.
I work a lot with the Jain community. They still love Gandhi, just to say.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Jains love Gandhi.
The positive.
Thank you for rescuing that one.
Thank you for that remark. That's great. I think the power of love is the next thing we should explore.
Okay, there we go. So this isn't the last of Vancouver 5.
No.
The power of love. Thank you, April.
And I thank everyone for participating and listening, and our move to consider this idea, the power of love, that we kind of came to at the end of this meeting. How we can do that in ourselves.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody on the panel.
Thank you for your contributions.
No, thank you all for keeping going, and bon nuit from France, and happy solstice. I'm also involved with the Druid community.
Yes, that's wonderful.
And so we're celebrating the solstice at Stonehenge all night tonight.
Oh, right.
They send their love and blessings. I'm the Archdruid of the Peace Druids of Britain. So,
Oh, wow.
All right.
amongst other hats, just to say, who weren't sworn to non-violence. I don't know if you knew that. The Druids, like James, were not allowed to fight, but they were the intelligences that directed the pursuit of justice through dialogue, discussion, mediation. We know that about the Druids, and I'm sort of reviving that tradition in the Celtic world.
Nice job.
Nice job.
You know, it's a big job, yeah, but you know,
somebody's got to do it.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I do my bit.
Thank you.
So look, yeah, bless you all, and you need it in San Diego, don't you? Because of all this mosque shootings and God knows what.
Oh yeah, thank you.
All kinds of stuff.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks, panel. Thanks to Tim. I'll email him, but thank you all.
Right, ciao.
Yeah, right.
Thanks everybody for coming.